you're it.
Yeah, I've gathered that, unfortunately.
Hey, I was thinking.
Well, I'm going to stop you right
Uh
there.
oh. Go ahead.
We've warned you about this.
Oh yeah, that's true. You have
No thinking out loud.
no thinking out loud.
Okay, anyways, moving forward.
I am sensing that there is some concern about the markets here.
Is the sky falling?
The sky is not falling. That's the simple answer.
All right, well, welcome to our TED Talk. Thank you for coming.
Welcome to our TED Talk. I think the most important thing here at this juncture is to consider perspective. I mean, based on all of the negativity we've been watching and hearing last week or so, you would think that we'd be in a full blown correction here, wouldn't you?
You would think so.
You would think. You might be surprised by this statement, and it's true. Year to date, the S&P 500 is down about 2%, and the Nasdaq is down 5. So from all-time highs, all-time, forever and ever and ever highs, the S&P 500 is down 3%, and the Nasdaq is down 7.
So, I mean, in that, technically not, it's down from its peak, but not down as we would say.
No, we're not.
Like as we would think.
We're not in a correction, not in a technical correction.
Right. But I mean, is would you say that this is something that would be anticipated?
This move down,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, really. I think the biggest thing that is concerning people, and it is a legitimate reason for concern, is that the Fed has announced that they are removing stimulus. Mm-hmm. So we've been in this 10 plus year, 10 year plus, whatever. Yeah, that period of monetary policy stimulus from the Fed. Thank you very much. And they have announced that this is the year they curb that.
So they're going on a diet.
They're going on a diet. Yes.
So what does that look like for the average person listening right now when you say that they're removing stimulus from all that they're doing, and so they're not stimulating America or something, and so like what is it? How does that translate to everyday life? Does in the translation to everyday life, does it really even affect anything?
Well, I mean, you just said yourself, we're going on a diet. We're going from milkshakes and French fries to salads and tofu.
Well, I don't know if tofu would be considered
Maybe
a diet.
baked chicken.
Okay,
Yeah.
it seems a little bit more reasonable.
I mean, there are some palatable things, on the menu.
Right.
Okay.
Like what?
Well, I mean, if we want to go down that road, I think the biggest thing right now is we have to confront the reality that the Fed is tightening. We know that financial markets have benefited from monetary policy stimulus. And since the COVID pandemic hit us, we've also had fiscal stimulus. Well, the stimmy checks are drying up, and the Fed is pulling back, as they should. We have a disconnect here between inflation and the Fed funds rate. That's the short-term interest rate that the Fed sets. That is one of their biggest monetary policy tools. Wesley, keep your eyes open. I haven't said anything to put you to sleep yet.
No, this whole thing is.
Okay, well.
So, I mean, but my point being, how does this affect day-to-day life right now?
Well, let's first talk about investments.
Right.
Okay, so this can have a major effect on investments. When you start raising interest rates, now money has a cost. There's been a lot of speculative behavior in financial markets. I mean, I could point to meme stocks, cryptos, NFTs, all kinds of things. Or look at some of the tech stocks and look at the price multiples that they're trading at. Look at Tesla. Okay, Tesla is trading at 22 times sales. So basically, that means that their market cap is 22 times their revenues. By comparison, Ford's price to sales is 0.7. GM's price to sales is 0.7. So there's a lot of exuberance in the markets, and easy money has certainly been a fuel for that exuberance. And with the easy money being taken away, we're going to see some rationalization in financial markets. So the things that have been the sexiest, the fastest growing, the things with the most sizzle, those are the things that are most at risk in this kind of environment, an environment where we're seeing a monetary policy regime change. And I know that's a mouthful. So I would say it's not necessarily a time to de-risk. There's no reason to be freaking out at this point, but it is an opportunity to consider shifting some things, looking at some other sectors to invest in, things that have underperformed. And we are starting to see a style shift away from growth and into value. Gosh, that is a long time coming, Wes, because historically, the value-oriented investments outperform the growth-oriented investments. But we have seen growth just crush value really since the credit crisis. And we know that that can't sustain itself. Everything in finance mean reverts. So when things get out of line, the pendulum swings to the other direction, and it tends to swing pretty far in the other direction. So I would just say, consider getting out of those things that have done the best. Look at those things that are tangible, real, boring. Those are the things that would likely weather the best in this environment. Okay, those are just a few things on the investment front. All right, I know your question was more to everyday real life.
Right.
Well, okay, we know that stimulus checks are coming to an end. We know that,
I thought they already did.
well, for most people, they already did. We also know that, we are far from full employment. Job openings continue to persist. At some point, people are going to have to go back to work. Those people who have been comfortable, living off the stimulus, they're going to have to go back to work. And I think that we need to face the reality that inflation, while we may be hitting peak inflation here, inflation is likely going to be a little stickier. So some of the things that we're seeing, like for example, food inflation, gas inflation, those things can persist. And we just have to get used to paying higher prices for things, that we need.
So, I mean, in everyday life, it could be said that now's not the time to splurge on, that thing that maybe you really want, but you're like, and I could do it because we could see an increase of everyday goods. We already are seeing a price increase of everyday goods. Like even us here in Louisiana, we went from, what was gas, around $2.30 this time last year?
All right, let's go with $2.30.
I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but I know it's close to like $3 or maybe even a little over $3 depending on
Sure.
what part of the town you're in. So we are seeing where just even a year, almost growth just under $1 per gallon in gas. And that's just one thing. I mean, you can look at the price of food staples, like when it snows, everybody goes and buys milk and bread. Or the joke is, the dollar store is now a $1.10 store.
Right.
So I mean, we could see how, it could affect the everyday life, and, maybe it is time to kind of spend a little bit more on the reserve side of things versus excessively.
Absolutely.
I mean, but then again, like when, I think about when, and this is no bash on them, but when right when it got hit to the news that stimulus checks were about to come out, you know what went center aisle? $1,200 TVs
Ah, yes.
in Walmart. People were getting $1,200, and incidentally, there was a 55-inch TV for $1,200 right in the middle.
A coincidence?
Sure. Cause and effect.
Mm.
Walmart was also trying to be stimulated at that point. So what else, Bill? Like, talk to us, educate us.
We are seeing people rebuilding their savings.
Mm-hmm. Which is a good thing.
That's a good thing. It's just not a good thing for the economy. Economists don't like that. You know, they want to see people spending money. So when people are saving money, you know, that's the opposite. So it really doesn't have an economic stimulative effect. But people need to do that.
Right.
You know, something else I've been watching is real estate. You know, we're starting to see mortgage rates go up.
Yeah.
Now, anecdotally, we've been hearing how, you know, people have been cashing in from investments and using that money for down payments on houses. That's great. I don't have a problem with that. But affordability is an issue, and it will continue to be an issue. There is an insufficient supply of housing in the markets.
And cars.
And now interest rates are going higher.
Yeah. Yeah, well. There's that.
There's that.
What else is pressing in your thought pattern about what's going on in the markets, and like what, or how about this? What piece of advice would you give to somebody that say turning 39 on Sunday from a much wiser perspective, a grayer hair perspective, if you would, or less hair perspective, if you would. We're keeping it.
Are you inferring that I'm significantly older than 39?
Yes.
Oh.
At least by like 2 years.
And you're judging me based on my hairline?
Lack there.
Oh.
There's nothing but love here
Yeah.
between Bill
and
and I.
no one can see what I'm currently doing, which is a good thing.
Which, yeah, well, yeah. But I mean, what piece of advice in this situation, someone in their 30s, what would you tell them in this? Because someone in their 30s, my generation, has not seen something like this in their lifetime. So what should they be doing to prepare themselves for higher cost items, you know, inflation, housing market struggles, you know, trying to buy a car, like all that sort of stuff that people are facing that maybe, you know, when you were alive during the Great Depression.
Thank you, Wesley.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. But I mean, we haven't seen anything like this. Nothing has happened like this in my lifetime. Like even in 2008, like in 2008, we were in our 20s, and we were like just trying to go through college. Our parents had to deal with this stuff, but we didn't necessarily.
Well, going through what exactly?
I think we were used to everything being like low cost. Like we didn't see price increases or shortages. You know, we didn't know what it was like to like have to like, you know, ration water and toilet paper. We've never experienced that until last year.
Rationed water?
We had to, you know, conserve or something. I don't know what people did.
Yeah, they didn't do that in my neighborhood.
Well.
All right. Well, I don't know that a whole lot of people other than say people of 60 and older have a good reference for what could happen.
And that's why I asked you.
I'm not over 60. Come on. And here's my basis for saying that. We really haven't experienced meaningful shortages and meaningful price inflation, since the 1970s. So the 1970s were tough. We had real stagflation. So the economy was stagnating, but prices were going up. We were in the midst of an energy crisis, and people were having to wait in long lines to fill up their gas tanks. Interest rates, were starting to move higher, and the inflation was so bad that the Fed had to take the Fed funds to double digits to break the back of inflation. It was just a bad time in America, economically speaking. We haven't had anything like that since then. And we probably have gotten lazy when it comes to expecting convenience and low prices. And while we rail against what we've experienced during this supply chain crisis, and we rail against how everything is made overseas, and certainly most of that is made in China, we have benefited from that. Okay, we've just gotten used to cheap stuff on the shelves.
Yeah.
And, if we're going to fix that, there's going to be pain. I mean, we can't bring manufacturing back to the U.S. and not expect higher prices on those goods and services that are made here domestically. I mean, that's just part of it. So maybe we do need to get used to longer lines, longer resupply, higher prices. This just may be the start. I don't know, Wesley, but
I don't know if it interferes with my Amazon Prime deliveries.
well, let's just say the deliveries will be made on time. They'll just cost you more.
No, that's the benefit is they don't charge you for delivery. It's just going to take longer, probably. Excuse me while I explain Amazon Prime to our senior citizen here. 2 days.
2 days. Well,
one price.
I guess I'm really thinking more on the investment front,
Yeah.
and what I would say to, someone.
Well, I mean, would you consider it wise in the current conditions of today's market and kind of what's on the horizon line, I guess we would say, of things to come? Would you suggest it's a good idea for someone in my shoes, you're 30-year-old, and would it be a good idea to start investing now, or just save until we're in a economic better position?
You can't wait. This is just general advice. If someone hasn't started, they need to start, and they cannot time the beginning point based on when they feel like it's safe to go in. The time in which you feel comfortable putting money in an investment is going to be when it's already generated performance. And the time that you feel most fearful about putting money into an investment is after a period of underperformance, and that's just human nature. So if something is underperformed, we have to look at it as a better opportunity because we're buying it at a lower price today. So the expected future return will be higher just simply because the entry point it is better. You have to get started. So that's number one. You have to get started, and you cannot wait. There's always something or somewhere to put money. It doesn't have to be in a major stock index. If you're concerned about, say, the NASDAQ and tech stocks, well, you don't have to go there. There's other places to put money. The other thing is, like I said earlier in this conversation, I think that people have gotten complacent. They've just assumed that stocks only go up, and that's certainly not the case. Stocks go up and they go down. Now, historically, the U.S. stock market is up 85% of the time, or something like that. So that says something to the durability of the U.S. stock market. But the U.S. stock market can and does go through periods of underperformance, and those periods can last for a while. I mean, we saw the U.S. stock market just basically go sideways. It went nowhere in the 1970s. And I'm not saying that we don't have that again, but that could happen. Um, so everyone should accept, and I'm getting to my next piece of advice here. I think everyone just needs to accept that investing is not easy. And if it seems easy, it's probably going to become hard. And maybe we're in that transition right now where we're moving from investing in stocks having been too easy, thanks to easy money and the Fed and all this speculation just pushing prices higher. And now it's going to be more challenging.
All right.
And with the rise in or expected rise in interest rates, yes, that will hit speculative investments the hardest. It's going to cause money to come out of those areas. We'll probably see a lot of the options trading volume come down as a result, and that does have an impact on markets. So we're just going to have to be more selective here. People are going to have to do their homework. And the last piece of advice I would say, especially right now, because the markets are just get started the year kind of in a funk, and it's important to maintain perspective. The term zoom out, you just like zooming out on your phone. If we just zoom out, then we get a very different perspective of what the stock market, the U.S. stock market, has done. We're still in an uptrend. Could that trend be broken? Absolutely it can. It hasn't been yet. But we are still in an uptrend.
It's kind of an interesting perspective when you could look at it and go, see, some things are down, but to still say that we're in an uptrend.
Yeah, we are in an uptrend. Now, one area of concern is that the major indexes, and specifically the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, when you look at their performance, like for last year, both of these indexes had a great year. But the performance of the indices masks the underlying weakness of the constituents. Because we know for a fact, both of those indices, their performance was generated mostly by a handful of the usual suspects, the mega cap tech stocks. They lifted those two indexes last year. So if we see weakness in mega cap tech, that will have an inordinate negative impact on the broad indexes.
So now is not the time to get out.
No. I'm not. I'm like I said earlier. I don't think that anyone needs to be de-risking at this time. This is an opportunity to do some rebalancing. If someone has a balanced portfolio, no one likes bonds because interest rates and yields are low. But when anyone says, "Hey, bonds are dead," anytime you hear someone declare that an entire asset class is dead, buy it. So everyone's saying bonds are dead because interest rates are so low and they're only going higher. Okay, well, maybe you should buy some bonds. You just need to be selective about it.
Right.
And the other reason to be buying, some fixed income exposure is, like I said, the rebalancing opportunity that you have now because you've seen your stocks way outperform your bonds in recent history. So do that. And then we also talked about rebalancing across sectors, trimming those things that have done the best and adding to those things that have underperformed.
Which is no different than, I recall a show we did last year, or towards the end of last year, towards the beginning or end of 2020 into 2021, is we were talking about the necessity of reevaluating your portfolio, reevaluate like what are your goals, and repositioning yourself to reach those goals. At the same time, it's a great time to go over your insurance policy,
Sure.
all that sort of stuff, at the beginning of the year. This is just more encouragement to do such things.
Yeah, sure is.
And so to make sure that you're going in the direction that you want, and I think the real thing is, like you said something, and it's even worded on our website. Investing seems easy until it isn't.
Exactly.
And that's why someone like yourself exists, is to help somebody when they're in that position, when they realize investing isn't as easy as maybe thought. Because, I mean, you have platforms out there that have made, retail investing easy, stimulating, appealing to the eye.
The sizzle.
Yeah. It's not necessarily they're pushing one thing or another, but peer pressure does definitely push one thing or another. When you hear, people are all, questions I find myself in, conversations I always find myself talking about is, your main tech stocks and Amazons and Apples and Googles, and then, you get into like your cryptocurrencies and like all this other stuff, and,
Tesla.
Yeah.
If you get on social media, you get on FinTwit,
yeah.
right? Financial pages on Twitter.
He just figured out what this is.
Yeah, well.
There's also financial TikTok too. We're trying to get
really?
Yeah, I've been
FinTalk?
Just keep going.
All right, I'm trying to learn.
I know.
So anyway, you're not going to hear about the boring stuff when you get
No.
on these platforms. It's all going to be about the sexy things. Yeah, it's going to be about the Teslas and the AMCs and the cryptos and all that stuff. And that's fine if you're into
Why
that.
is AMC attractive right now?
Well, it's
I thought
not.
they were done.
It's not. But I think it's important to make that distinction between people who are day trading and people who are long-term investing.
Right.
And if you're trying to get your investment advice from social media, you're going to be bombarded. You're going to be confused.
It's like WebMD. I have a headache. And then, like, you just type that into WebMD, and it's like, Bill, you're pregnant.
What?
Yeah, it's very confusing.
I'm confused.
Well, we have a stock for that.
Okay. But you have all these cross currents of all these different ways of investing. All right. I mentioned day trading. I mentioned long-term investing. But then you've got all these other things in there. And so people are throwing out ideas mainly to generate attention.
Because
Right?
if you get enough attention, you can move something.
Sure. They just want to generate attention, garner followers, and so they're doing that for that reason. But do you ever read about on social media? Do you ever read about like AT&T
No, I once read
or
about
Altria?
I read about GameStop once, but
Yeah.
and that was a boring one until somebody got enough people to move it.
Exactly.
And then there's people that literally lost everything.
Okay, so I said earlier, NASDAQ is down 5% year to date.
Right.
Well, here are some things that are up year to date. AT&T is up 9% year to date.
Yeah.
Altria is up 6% year to date. Berkshire Hathaway is up 7% year to date.
And we're year to date is really 14 days.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, they're up 7, 9, 6%.
ExxonMobil is up 15% year to date.
That's because gas prices are higher. That's not a fair.
Well, hey.
That's because we just paid $5 a gallon.
Well, but here's the thing, and we have mentioned this in previous shows. If you want exposure to the energy sector and you are just passively investing in indices, you will be underexposed.
Yeah.
Okay, the energy sector has its smallest representation in the S&P 500 ever. So you're missing out.
Yeah.
Well,
What are some biting or not? Oh, not that.
biting?
No. Farewell comments. We bid you adieu.
We bid you adieu. Well, it's a long weekend. Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Federal holiday. Markets will be closed. We wish everyone a safe, healthy weekend, and I emphasize healthy. Seems like if you are not sick yourself, you know someone who is sick. I mean, it's just going around like crazy. But I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling right now and looking at the clock and thinking about getting out of here, Wes. What about you?
Yes.
Yes. We have some questions. Oh, my buddy Temple asked a question here.
Long-time caller, long-time listener.
Yes. JP Morgan. I saw that news on JP Morgan. I really have not looked into that. So I don't have a thought on it. Financials have been doing really well last 12 months or so. And we could see the financial sector continue to do well on rising interest rates. So rising interest rates, generally speaking, are good for the financial sector. You know, here's my farewell comment that I'll leave with our listeners. If we are expecting rises in interest rates this year, and we are, the Fed has indicated as much. There's some questions about how many times they will raise the Fed funds rate. Who cares? Just know that interest rates are going higher. They have to go higher. So think about those investments that would expectedly do better in a rising interest rate environment and contrast it with those investments that would expectedly do poorer in a rising interest rate environment. Now, the inflation thing, you could also do a similar analysis. Rising inflation, falling inflation, sideways inflation, I mean, however you want to do it. You don't want to overcomplicate your analysis, but I would say start with interest rates. That's definitely coming. And I'll leave you with that. And it is Friday, and I am out of here.
Are you?
I'm definitely out of here. Hey, Wes,
Yes.
thanks for sidekicking with me.
That's what I do. That's what I do. Well, everyone have a good, healthy, safe Friday.
Yes.
Make good decisions.
Always.
And here in sports, no sports
No
today.
sports today.
All right. Is that it?
That's it, guys.
Are we sure?
I'm positive.
I was negative.